Hi, what's going on, guys? In today's video I want to talk about a topic that a lot of people have been asking me for, and it's basically about cutting or bulking if you're skinny fat. Which goal should you pick and how should you do it? So for me in this video, I basically want to talk about different approaches you can take, and I also want you guys to have it very clear in your mind that I cannot give a generalized opinion on this subject because every person is different, right? That's why I do online coaching. That's why I offer customized services, because every person is different. Every person needs a different approach, and every person has basically different goals, right, for themselves. But yeah, in this video I'm going to try to make it as generalized as possible and give a few different options for the few different peoples out there, right? Because there are multiple things you can do. Now first, let's talk about what is skinny fat. What does it mean? So it basically means that you do not have a lot of muscle mass on your frame, and at the same time you have a lot of body fat, or at least you have more, like at least 50% body fat, right? So you basically look skinny because you do not have any muscle mass, and at the same time, when you have your shirt off, you do not look skinny, right? In the sense that you have abs and shit. You basically still have like love handles, for example, or you may have a lot of lower back fat, and at the same time with a shirt on you look very skinny, right? And that is obviously not an ideal situation. That is far from ideal. That is actually the situation that nobody wants to be in. So that's why I do think it's a good idea to make this video and to kind of explain what you should be doing at this point. Because I've talked about bulking cutting before. If you want to see more detailed video on that, make sure to click the link in the description box down below. So bulking basically means being in a caloric surplus, whereas you focus on building muscle, and cutting means being in a caloric deficit, where you should focus on losing fat, right? Now, if you are skinny fat, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, where are you at? Are you a beginner? Have you never lifted before in your life, or have you never been lifting seriously, or maybe you have been doing like the wrong type of training? If you are new to lifting, you are able to do a recomp, right? Which means recomposition, which means losing fat and building muscle at the same time, which is the ideal thing you want to do as a skinny fat person. Because as a skinny fat person, the thing you want to accomplish is having more muscle and less fat, right? That is what every person wants to accomplish, but if you're skinny fat, that is something you really, really want. So that's my advice for the skinny fat people that are just starting to get into lifting, all right? What I recommend is basically being in a slight caloric deficit. So being in a caloric deficit will help you lose the fat, but at the same time, you will be able to build a little bit of muscle because they're completely new to lifting, right? And the type of routine you want to be doing as a skinny fat person is probably a full body routine 3 times a week, and then focus mostly on compound exercise, all right? Because this will basically give you the greatest strength gains, and at the same time, that will help you build the most muscle you can possibly make. Especially if you're a beginner, you definitely want to be doing that. But now then, on another note, like I already said, it's pretty hard because there are a lot of different people out there who have different type of ideas about skinny fat, because I'm saying skinny fat, but for one person skinny fat may mean another thing to another person, right? Someone it may mean like he's 12% body fat and doesn't have a lot of muscle. To another person it may mean he has like 20% body fat and not a lot of muscle. So there are kind of like different conflicting ideas on that topic. But like if you are skinny fat, but at the same time like you're basically very skinny and you know that you have a hard time gaining weight, maybe you've never really gained weight in your life, or you can eat anything you want and you still don't gain weight. In that case, I do recommend, if you just started getting into lifting, to do a bulk instead of a cut. So I do recommend being in caloric surplus at that point, because you do have a hard time gaining weight. In that case, you will be able to build muscle and at the same time lose a little bit of fat, right? Because in that situation, you probably do not have that much fat, and you probably just look very skinny and look like you have some fat because you don't have any muscle, right? And that's kind of the thing I see as well, guys. When you start gaining muscle, it actually looks like you're less fat sometimes, all right? So that kind of depends, obviously. If you're very overweight, that will not really happen. But when I started getting into lifting, and you know, when you start gaining muscle, your arms may carry a bit more fat, but they will also get more muscle and therefore look more defined. Not necessarily defined, but look bigger, right? And in that case, you will probably look better. So to quickly break that down, if you're completely new to lifting, if you're skinny fat, you should probably do a little cut. So focus on being in a slight caloric deficit, and in that way you will be able to make gains while losing fat, right? So you primarily focus on losing fat, but in the process you will make a little bit of strength gains, a little bit of muscle gains as well. Now if you're a skinny fat, but you know from yourself that you're pretty much a hard gainer, so you do have a hard time gaining weight, you can basically eat a lot of food and your weight doesn't change, you probably stay around the same, then it's probably a good idea to go in a slight caloric surplus, because in that case you will focus mainly on building muscle. which you need because you're probably a little bit more skinny than you think you are. And then you will lose some fat in the process as well, guys. So that's the recon that you can do when you just start to get into lifting. And that's basically what I recommend for skinny fat people, because if you start to get into lifting and you're skinny fat, you want to build muscle and lose fat, right? So you want to do both at the same time because it's possible at that point to some degree, right? And I'm not saying all of that is going to happen within 4 to 8 weeks, guys. It is going to take a long time. It's going to take months before you will visually notice a change in your physique, right? But that's something you got to accept as well, because as a skinny fat person, you have a long way to go, all right? I don't want to crush your realities. I don't want to make it sound extra hard for you, but it is the reality, guys. You have a long way to go because you need to, first of all, build a lot of muscle mass, which is a process that literally takes years, guys. Building muscle mass takes a long amount of time, and at the same time you need to lose fat, right? So you need to do both things at the same time, and that's why it's just gonna take a very long time. You have to accept that first. Let's talk about people who have been lifting a little bit longer and seriously, and that are still skinny fat, right? So maybe you've been lifting for 1 to 2 years seriously, and you're still skinny fat. In that situation, I never really recommend bulking for anyone, all right? In that situation, I would always recommend being in caloric deficit and cutting down first. Because like I already said, like if you're a beginner, you can build muscle and lose some fat in that process. But if you have been lifting for like 1 to 2 years, the newbie gains, they are gone, and it's not possible to do that properly anymore unless you're on steroids, all right? So if you're not, I do recommend if you're skinny fat, you have been lifting for a while, to cut down, guys. Now a lot of people, they have the problem as well. They've been cutting for so long that they simply stay skinny fat because they don't lose weight anymore. And in that case, you want to look into refeed days and also in diet breaks, guys. So I'll put a link in my description as well where I talk about some tips for cutting, and you definitely want to check out that video because that's going to help you with cutting in the long run, right? And in that case, we'll be able to lose weight properly, and then after you are pretty much, you don't have to be shredded, guys. Everybody is constantly thinking about shredded. You see all these people on Instagram, right? Don't get these unrealistic expectations, guys. We have been lifting for years, all right? If you just started getting into lifting, do not look at all these people on Instagram and think that you're gonna look like them within a year of lifting or after one solid cut, all right? It's just not gonna happen. It takes years, literally years. And you know, sometimes it's kind of frustrating because I know, like I do the same thing. We only, a lot of times, show the end result, but we never show like the whole journey, where we came from and all that kind of stuff. But like, you have to go through a long period of time to build a physique that you want, and that's something you have to accept. So that's basically my advice for skinny fat people. You know, what's very important there is that you just get strong as hell on your lifts, and that's why I usually recommend doing a lot of compound exercises. Now, if you have into lifting a little bit longer, then you can do like a routine of 4 or 5 days a week. But I still recommend focusing mainly on the compounds and just getting strong as hell, as strong as you can be, because that's gonna give you the most amount of gains if you're natural, right? So that's pretty much my advice to skinny fat people, guys, and that's what you're gonna have to do it with. So the main point there, I think all of you know, is time, and that is something that most skinny fat people don't want to accept, and that's why they always say, you know, there is no solution. I cannot build muscle, I cannot lose fat, it's not working out, I'm staying skinny fat. It's just the reality that it's gonna take such a long time because you're gonna have to do both things at the same time, and that is literally gonna take months and years to properly accomplish. And I promise you will see some results if you stay dedicated to the gym for about 8 weeks, for example, if you also have a proper nutrition program, and you will see results, guys. But this is basically the video. This is my general guidelines. Like I already said, it's very hard for me to make a proper video about this because there are so many different people on this planet, right? And a lot of people need different types of training, types of dieting, and basically a different approach because not everybody has the same goals. And also, if you're skinny fat, you might want to ask yourself, you know, this is a very important thing as well. Like I already said, it's kind of hard to make this video because a lot of people have different opinions and a lot of people have different goals. If you are skinny fat and you do not really care about being bulky or being big, putting on a little bit more fat, then it might be a smart idea to be in a caloric surplus, all right, even if you're a little bit more fat for 1 to 2 years. And you might want to sacrifice being leaner for building muscle mass at that point, and doing that for a couple of months, do a proper bulk. Like I've done it before in the past, I've gotten fat as fuck, and after that I cut down and I look great. Like it's something you can do if you want to accept the fact that you're gonna walk around on this planet with a little bit more fat than the average person, you know. I did accept it, you can accept it, but that's all up to you. If you don't want that, then I always recommend cutting down. So that's also things like, it's very personal, the approach you want to take, right? But yeah, that's basically the video. Like I said, it's very hard for me to make a proper video because every person is different, every person needs a different approach, and that's why I do online coaching. So if you guys are interested in that, then basically go to my website, studentsthetics.com, for a fully personalized approach. But if not, basically think about your goals, think about this video, and choose a goal and accept that it's gonna take a long time, right? And then you're good to go, guys. Enjoy the journey, and you will get there one day, trust me. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like the video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out. See you in the next video.